traveling? Did you cancel that beach vacation due to COVID-19? Or did you cancel that fancy trip to Paris Fashion Week because of COVID-19? Has COVID-19 shattered most, if not all, your travel plans for 2020? Hi everyone, ciao tutti, hola mi gente, welcome back guys. So today I have a very interesting video, at least I think it's interesting, I think you'll find it interesting. But it's pretty much going to be about travel tips and travel advice on how to travel after COVID-19. So I'm going to be looking down from time to time because I did jot down some very helpful points here that I want to make sure that I do not miss in this video. So please grab a pen and paper because I think you're going to find these very helpful. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably already planning on your next trip to make up for the failed travel plans that you had earlier this year or coming up. So when you're planning again, you're back up planning for your next trip, please keep these tips that I'm going to give you, keep them in mind when doing so. Now, of course, after COVID-19, we all know that traveling is going to change. It's going to change us as travelers. It's going to change the way we travel. It's going to change everything. So we want to make sure that you're prepared. You want to make sure that you're very prepared for this. And, you know, travel can be stressful. So you want to make it as stress-free as possible. So these tips are they're not in any particular order. So I'm just going to jump right in. And tip number 1, when choosing a destination, make sure to look up the city or country and COVID-19 cases and their healthcare system. Why? Now, this goes for mostly international, but also domestic as well. When you're planning a new place, I'm sure most of you already researched the place or look up things to do, things like that. But because of what we're going through right now, this pandemic, you want to make sure that, again, are there borders open for international travel? Are there borders open? Can you travel in? Now, borders are still closed right now, so you want to make sure, at least for most countries, so you want to make sure when they open, are they allowing foreigners there? Are they allowing tourists? Also for domestic as well. Now, they don't have borders, of course, but really when you're traveling domestically, there are a few cities that you are going to want to keep in mind. They do have probably guidelines that you have to probably stay quarantined for a certain amount of time, things like that. So you want to make sure that you look this up. Now, again, you probably don't want to travel when they still have these rules in place. Probably want to wait a little bit, but we'll get into that later on. So you want to also look up their COVID-19 cases because, again, you want to see how many cases did they have? How many healed from this? How many are cured? How many do they still have if they have any? Is it safe to travel there? How's their healthcare system? How did it take care of their COVID patients? Things like that to keep in mind. Now that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, make sure you purchase good travel insurance and not just the trip protection type I'm talking about. I'm talking about medical insurance. Now, I know some of you may have been like, medical insurance? Really? Yes, medical insurance. Now, I've worked for years in medical travel insurance, and I could tell you a couple of stories. I'll probably do a video on that later on, but I could tell you very disturbing, funny stories, but also disturbing as well. But you do not know what you can find yourself in when traveling. You always want to think positive. Oh, that's not going to happen. I'm healthy. I'm this. I'm blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's the healthy ones that usually get sick or the healthy ones that get themselves in trouble. But that's that's story for another time. So pretty much medical insurance. Why? Because in the event that you were to fall sick or something happens, you get injured, you want to make sure that you have medical insurance that can pay for your medical bills abroad. Because it's not like the US where their first instinct is to, or at least in some other countries too, the first instinct is to take you to the hospital, receive care, and then worry about payment. There are countries that you'll go to that do require you to either put a down payment or pay your bill in full before you receive treatment. I know that sounds crazy and sounds heartless, but unfortunately, there are a lot of countries like that. So you want to keep that in mind. And another added bonus tip to this tip number 2 is you want to purchase travel insurance that has expatriation benefit and repatriation benefit as well. Now, expatriation is, let's say you are in an island somewhere, you fall sick or something, and you're taken to the local hospital there on the island, and they tell you they don't have the appropriate doctors, or their doctor only comes on Wednesdays, and today is it's Thursday, so you have to wait a whole week. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. There's some places like that. Or they just don't have the proper medical equipment to attend to your needs. So if you have expatriation benefits, what they're going to do is that your insurance will assess the hospital, see that the hospital staff is stating that they can treat you, so they're going to expatriate you to the closest medical best medical facility. So the closest could be, let's say you are in the, I don't know, let's say you were somewhere in the Bahamas or the Virgin Islands or so, and the closest medical center of excellence that meets you know, there's pretty much a rating for all hospitals around the world, and your insurance will know that. So let's say this particular hospital in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo has better care and is considered like grade A, let's just say. They're gonna expatriate you from this island that you're in onto the Dominican Republic, to Santo Domingo, where they have appropriate medical care, where you can at least receive medical care, and from there they'll assess to see if you need to get other care, whatever the case is. But that's, again, another story. So that's expatriation. Repatriation is when you get sick again, you're admitted into a hospital in this country, you receive care, the care is adequate and appropriate for your condition. So after your care is received, but now it's time to return home, you're stable enough to return home, to either maybe continue treatment or after discharge, again, depending on what you were admitted for in the first place. So basically, the insurance will say, okay, you're covered for repatriation back home, so they'll pay for your flight back home. It could be with a medical escort, it could be with like a doctor or a nurse or something like that, just to make sure that you're stable until you get home. Or if you're completely in great bill of health and you're cured or whatever, they'll at least pay for your trip back home safely. So yes, so medical insurance is very important, and of course trip protection is very important. That's a no-brainer. So make sure it has medical and trip protection insurance, okay? You may have to purchase them separately, but make sure you have those two things when traveling, always. So that's the end of tip number 2. Tip number 3, always make sure to have, let me get this one. Always make sure that you're aware of the terms and conditions of your travel. Why? Let's see. It's a no-brainer, because when booking a hotel or flight or a tour or whatever, you always want to read the fine print. It's very, very important to read the fine print, because you want to know what you're purchasing is essentially a contract. In other words, like, you want to know what you're getting yourself into. If something happens, can I get out of it? What can I do? You know what I mean? You always want to make sure. Excuse me, I'm parched. So yeah, I feel like everyone should know that, but if you didn't know that, this is a time that you want to make sure that you have trip protection. Okay, so that's tip number 3, right? So going on to tip number 4. Book trips with easy connections or with easy routes. I cannot stress that. It's not only for the fact that it's convenient, you get to your destination quick, and who wants to have a layover of 9 hours or 3-4 stopovers before you get to your final destination. But some people will do that, not me. Some people would do that if the price is right. But anyways, for this particular purpose, the reason why I state this is that when traveling, when picking out a destination, you want to make sure that it's easy to get to that destination, and it's easy to also get back home in the event of any emergency. So of course, first option you should be looking at is direct flights. Do they have direct flights to this place? It's best to get on a direct flight. How frequent are these flights to this destination? Do they have 1 flight a day? Do they have 2 flights a day? Do they have 5 flights a day? Do they have 1 flight a week? Yes, there are places like that. If you go to like an island, some islands or whatever, they have flights that fly in once a week. So you want to make sure that you look into the frequency of the flights, how easy is it to get there, and things like that. Now, if you don't have the luxury of picking out a direct flight, do the minimum of one stopover. That stopover, also again, look into where you're stopping over, look into the kind of stopover you're doing. You want to make sure that again has a lot of frequency as far as the flights, how many flights are going to that destination, how many flights are from that destination to home, things like that. You want to have plan A, B, and C in the event that you're looking for ways to get home. So that's very important. So that's tip number 4. Number 5, try to pick a less crowded destination. Yeah, I know you're thinking, how? I just flew how many hours in a capsule sharing oxygen with however many people, and I'm gonna start looking at a less crowded destination. I know it seems weird and strange to mention that, but the less people you share a space with, the better it is. So this is, again, just a very light suggestion to consider while planning your trip. Now, places that have like national parks are really nice to go to. That way you're not sharing that much space with a lot of people that you do not know, or people that you don't know where they have been, things like that. So yeah, so keep that in mind when picking out a place. And you don't want to fly to a place like, let's say, as crowded as New York or Paris, something like that, where you are going to be in the metro and it's going to be like this. Everybody is just like squished together. No, you want somewhere where it's like space. But yeah, so that's tip number 5. So going on to tip number 6, do not plan too far ahead of time. I cannot relate to that. I never book ahead of time. And sometimes it bites me in the ass later, but you also get good deals when you book last minute, but that's a whole different thing as well. So why I say do not book too much ahead of time is because things are changing constantly, especially in the travel industry. Things are always changing, things are always updating. So that was tip number 6. So tip number 7, make sure you are healthy before a trip. Oh yes. Now this is obviously for any trip that you make, and this is just even when you're not taking a trip. You want to make sure you're healthy. But you don't want to be like, because they're saying that there are some people that are carriers of the COVID-19 and do not know, they don't have symptoms, nothing like that. And they could be spreading it to people, and those people are getting sick and possibly, having severe symptoms, and you're just here like, oh, I don't have any symptoms, but yet you have it. So that's just an example. Not that, you have it or whatever, but in the event that you are not in clean bill of health and you're traveling, you may get other people sick, or you may even fall even sicker while traveling, if that's even a word. But you may fall even really sick when traveling, and that's going to be going back to what I said, get good travel medical insurance. So you don't want to go on a trip and end up really ill and have to end up in a hospital. So make sure you do a checkup before you travel, especially again because of what we're going through right now. Think of it differently. Think of how you travel differently. Make sure you do a checkup. Make sure you tell your doctor, hey, I'm traveling to so and so place. Depending on where you're going to, it may not be a best fit for you, or that particular time may not be a best time to travel, things like that. So talk to your doctor before you travel. Make sure you are healthy. Make sure you are eating good foods that are boosting your immune system. Make sure you are just healthy in and out before you take a trip. So that's tip number 7. Tip number 8, make sure to pack hand sanitizer and wipes. I can't stress this. I did that even before this. Like, I wish I had one of them laying around next to me right now, but I pack hand sanitizer and wet wipes with me, antibacterial wet wipes. Because why? The plane is filthy to begin with. So not only is it filthy with germs, now you have to worry about viruses there were viruses before, but now you have to worry about viruses like COVID-19. So make sure you always pack these things. If you didn't pack it before, make sure you pack it now. I will tell you, that would be a video another whole video on how dirty planes are. Because honey, I can tell you what seats to avoid that are more dirty than the other, things like that. But you always want to take wet wipes to clean down the surface of your seats, your tray table in front of you, things like that. Hand sanitizer when you're not able to go wash your hands. You use your hand sanitizer. And of course, water and soap is always the first choice. But if you don't have immediate access to it and you're about to eat or touch something, or you're periodically touching your face, which I do a lot, you want to make sure it's clean. So you want to make sure you have hand sanitizer handy to quickly sanitize your hands. So yeah. So that was tip number 8. So tip number 9. Always have emergency funds. Yes. If you did not have emergency funds, which again, I know people that travel without emergency funds. Like I told you, I worked for travel insurance before. There are people who will travel across the whole world and not have $1 and rely on their credit cards or something. And then the credit card probably, like, I don't know, is frozen because they thought they didn't call their bank telling they were traveling or some crazy stuff or whatever the case is. Always have emergency funds. Like, even in life as an adult, you should have emergency funds. And even more so, especially when you're traveling, especially if it's international, even if it's domestic, you never know. Always have emergency funds. That's a no-brainer, but I'm just gonna throw that in there. So that was tip number 9. Tip number 10. Look up emergency numbers for that country or state or wherever you're going, and especially numbers and addresses of consulate and embassies. Why, you say? When you're traveling international and something was to go wrong, let's say you're an American citizen, you're traveling to another country, and something tragic happens, whatever the case is. I don't want to speak it into existence. I'm not going to say it. I'm that kind of person is like, no. But something crazy happens. How do you get out of there? The airports are shut down, like COVID-19. The airports were shut down in some places. Everything just completely shut. What do you do? How do you get home? Exactly. So make sure you have the address and phone number of your consulate or embassy, depending on where you are. They'll either have a consulate or a general consulate or an embassy. Make sure you have their address and phone number. You want to call them, tell them you are an American citizen or whatever citizen you are. Tell them, hey, I am here. I'm traveling from so-and-so. I am stranded. The airports are closed. I need to get back home. 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, they always have emergency plans put in place for whatever situation happens. So let's say you were to travel to a foreign country and war breaks out, for example. If you were to call your consulate or embassy, they probably already have like a plane to evacuate all their nationals out of that country and take them back home. So they probably have a plane that is fueled and ready and is waiting for all their US citizens or whatever consulate it is to pack up and for them to go. So there you have it, guys. Those are my 10 tips, 10 important tips for planning your travel when we can start back traveling again. I don't know when that's gonna be, but in the meantime, just stay home, stay safe, be healthy, and start brainstorming on your next trip, because I know I have a lot of destinations I'm trying to go to, so I can't wait. Now, if I missed any important tips that you feel like it's very important to keep in mind when planning for your upcoming trip, please comment below. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know what tips that I have missed that you think that should be considered when planning your travel. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I enjoyed making it, so I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. So make sure you click the subscribe button, like, and share the video. Ciao tutti. Bye, guys.